Good morning, everyone. Hello. Hi. It's the Hands of Anna Walker today. It is WTF Wednesday, and you are here in the studio of StabThingsIntoExistence.com. Welcome. Do you remember our project from last week where I took this bulb forcing vase and I covered it in this beautiful blue fiber bat with a wet felting technique? Well, what happened after I left our time together last week was that I let this dry, and then it was still a little too loose on the jar, so I got it warm and soapy water covered again, and I kept working it, and I sort of did a scrubbing motion with the bubble wrap that I used, and then I rolled it back and forth in my hand, and after about another 10 or 15 minutes I could tell that we had firmed up the felt considerably more. And that's just a lesson. If you're doing something like this project where you're covering a resist or you're covering a piece of glass or something, oftentimes what you need to do is let the fibers dry. This works really for any wet felting. Let the fibers dry, reassess when the fibers are dry, and if you need to, go ahead and re-wet it with your soapy water again and work it some more. That is the beauty of wet felting. It's not done until you say it's done. So I went ahead and re-wet felted this, re-rinsed it, and then let it dry. And so I was very, very happy with my base here. Now there are a couple of light areas, but for the project that I have in mind, for this particular little item, the little open bare spaces are actually a plus. So we're going to put a top on this today, and we're going to put a top on it because I have this really cute little battery operated set of twinkle lights that are going to fit right inside, and I'm not going to show you how they're going to look until I get the top ready, but there's enough gap that I can tuck the actual on and off switch right inside the cuff that is around, and let's build a cap for this. Now I'll come back to this in just a few minutes. This is what we're going to build, only this is only halfway done, and I want to show you how we started this. Isn't this going to look so cute? Have a little mushroom. I love mushrooms, but it's not just a mushroom, and I'll show you that later. I want to show you how I got this started because this is only about halfway through. So to start this, I took some undyed wool and I made a circle, made a donut of wool, and I just made sure that these end pieces were kind of connected together. You can even take and rub them in your hands to get them to connect a little bit more. But for this project, we just start out with this donut. This is where one of these multiple needle tools is going to come in handy. It's going to make the process go a whole lot quicker. Now I have kind of the underside just tucked in toward the center a little bit, and you'll see why in a minute. So I just started by flattening out my donut, and I'm going to work this all the way around. I'm not going to do this whole thing because we already have the halfway completed project, but you see how the fibers are starting to go toward the center? That's how we build up that centerpiece. And then we just work it back and forth and back and forth. We keep working it. I worked around, I worked this way, I did swirly little circles all the way around until I got this piece. Now you think, okay, this is flat, but this is dimensional. All I did was once I got to a certain point, I started working it on its side like this. And that gave me the ability, let me turn this so you can see, that gave me the ability to work these sides just a little bit more. And again, I could work them at different angles to come in and give that felting all the way around. And I just lifted it, and then I worked the next area. And we're doing this until we've got the fibers holding together quite nicely. and they're in basically the shape that we want. And you see why I recommend using this Clover multiple needle tool, because you've got 3 needles that are doing the work instead of 1. You can do it with a single needle, but you'll be at this for a while because you're going to have to work this area a little bit closer together because you've only got the single needle. It is possible to do, and there are a number of things that I created with just a single needle. But when you get to the point where you've got the shape you want, you can hold it at the center, pull down the sides until, you know, you get that nice little mushroomy kind of shape. And then you can flip it around and you can work the other side. Now what we're going to do right now, I'm going to flip it back because this is the outside and we're going to start adding some color. This is going to be a color cohesive piece. So it's going to be all the same blues. And I'm just going to start by sort of squishing down the sides so that I can get the bottom, or rather the top, of this wonderful little mushroom cap. And I'm just going to swirl my fibers around, trying to keep them flat, and then I'm going to come in with the needle tool. Again, this is one of those you can't really screw it up kind of projects. And I'm just kind of working that center part so that I can get that coverage. I have a few that I need to cover up right there, but you see how easy it was to get that covered. Now I don't want to work these edges too much because I want to start working all the way around, but I do need to work this very center portion because that's going to be the very top of our cap. Now I can, if I choose, to lift it up and go back down the other side, and you may want to do that just to hold things together and to sort of lock them in place. But beware, because working from the white side toward the color side, you are going to get some of those white fibers on top, and so it is going to impact your color on here. So if you don't want to have any white showing, don't work from the underside as much as you're working from the top side. And I'm going to pull another bit of fiber here. I'm just going to draft it out a little bit. And we're going to start working along the edges. Let's see if I can turn this so you guys can see it a little easier. Let's lift it up. There we go. I think that'll work. And I'm just working this in kind of a spiral pattern. And I can come back to it as I'm going around and I can further felt. Right now I'm just looking to get coverage all the way around. I'm going to build up this coverage so that I can work it very, very well. And I'm just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And again, you can do this with a single needle, but you will have to be a lot more deliberate with your stabbing, and it'll take a little bit longer because you're working with a single needle instead of with 3 needles. And so now we're to the point where I can kind of lay it flat here, and I can work on this lower portion of the edges. Again, just drafting the fibers out a little bit because they do have a tendency to bunch, and that's just because of this spiral that we've got going here. And we just lift and we move on to the next area. Sorry, I've got things grabbing hold of my sweatered elbow. And moving along to the next next area. You see, I'm not really concerned too much with the edges at this point, and that's because we will finish those edges up after we have firmly secured our color all the way around our cap. Now we need another bit. Again, just pulling off a single and then just drafting it out a little bit. And overlapping where we just were. And spiraling around. Finishing up. And so we've got our coverage all the way around. So let me get that closer. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to flip this around so you can see. We've got our coverage going all the way around. There's a little bit of a light spot here that I want to cover up. Don't need a lot of fiber there, so I can just cover that there. And then come in with my needles and get that spot coverage. Before we start, excuse me, before we start finishing the felting here, this is what I want to do. I want to assess the different areas. And it looks like I've got a spot or two here and another spot here. So let's work those areas. And the interesting thing is that sometimes they don't show when they are curved around inside out because the fibers come together a little closer. And they don't really show until you pull them around the way they're going to be. Okay, so we need another spot right there. Okay, so we've got the coverage that we need. At this point, I am going to take, and I'm going to work very methodically from the tip of the top to the base of the edge of my cap. And I'm going to work it over and over until I see a nice connection between the fibers. And I'm going to go a couple of different directions so that we've got nice connections going here. Remember that the direction that your felting needles are going is the direction that the fibers are going to felt. So you want to make sure that you connect those fibers in as many directions as you can to create a very strong piece of felt. And since this is going to be the top for this piece, and because of what the piece is going to be used as, which you guys don't know yet, we need to make sure that we've got a nice felting on this cap because it's going to be lifted on and off frequently. So I'm just working lengthwise and then I'm working crosswise. Just however you want to go, just make sure that you're getting a nice coverage to all of the fibers from the tip all the way to the edge. So you'll kind of work wedges as you're felting the color onto the cap here. And I can tell that the fibers are connecting with the undyed fiber underneath because I can see the colored fibers coming through on the underside. And I'll show you that here in just a second. See how we can see that the fibers are integrating with the undyed? And we can also look at this and say, okay, I need to work this area here and I need to work this area here. It just lets us know where we need to be going next. And it's just about getting that full coverage, making sure that we've got a nice felt happening between our undyed fiber that is our base for the structure and our dyed fiber, which is our decorative skin for the structure. One last little bit, and I think we are ready to start contouring those edges. And again, as you're working your needles, whether you're using a single needle or whether you're using the multiple needle tool, you want to make sure that you're working kind of an imaginary grid pattern. And that way you are ensuring that you're covering every part of the fiber that needs to be felted. Looking on this side, and I've got a couple of areas where I think I want to come in and do just a little bit more. This is the nice thing about working with a dyed fiber area and adding it to an undyed fiber area, because you can easily see where your connections aren't as solid as they need to be, and you can come in. Like right in here, we could do a little bit more. And you can come in and you can work those areas specifically. It's a little easier to see when you're working with dyed and undyed. And it looks pretty cohesive to me, so I'm going to flip it around. And I want to just sort of draft out, pull out on this felt. I mean, it's amazing how quickly you can have a firm piece of felt going here. Now, I'm noticing I've got a couple of areas still that are a little bit on the light side. So I can take and I can put this underneath the corner of my felting foam here. That way I don't have to flip it around the other side. And I can add those fibers right on top. This also gives me a good way to be able to go over and sort of reinforce this cone shape that I've got for the cap here. Another nice tool to use when you're trying to work inside an item like a cap or a hat or any other kind of hollow form, you can use a bit of pool noodle to be your interior. Let's see if I've got one handy here. No, they're all put away. Shame on me. But are you seeing this little bit of light area here like I am? That's the next spot that I'm going to go over and add a little bit more fiber. So it's just a matter of, you know, working the different areas and sitting with them and playing with them, looking at it from all different angles to make sure that you've got that coverage. And right now I'm just sort of building up kind of a brim type shape by reinforcing this flattened area to come out with a little bit of a flare. We've got another little light spot here. So you get the idea here. Just adding the color all the way around, flaring out the brim of our toadstool or mushroom, whatever you want to call it. And so now it's time to take a look at these edges, because we've got some coverage here of the color on the end, but we don't have that color going all the way down and around. So I'm just working right along the edge here. I'm going to take a little bit of fiber and I'm going to make just a little bit of a rope or a strand of the fiber so I can go right along the edge here. And again, you see that I'm kind of flattening this out as I'm going around so that this edge has a flattened bit. I'm not going to mind at all that the white or the undyed fiber is showing on the underneath of this edge, but I do want to have the edge itself covered with color. So I'm going all the way around to make sure that I've got that coverage going. And then I can come through, and if I feel like scalloping a little bit, I can draft kind of outwards. Gotta be careful though that I don't pull those fibers away from the others that they're next to. Let's lift this up, move it on around. Now some of you might ask, well, couldn't you have done this with wet felting? Yeah, I could have, but I wanted to show you how you can pull a piece together using wet felting and needle felting so that you could practice both of those skills, both of those techniques. We've got just one little area here that we need to cover, so another tiny little rope just to give us this coverage right here. Okay. And just a nice little rub all the way around. You could certainly take and trim off any of the excess that you've got here. But I'm going to move my foam out of the way, and I'm going to show you our finished project with our cute little mushroom cap and our lighted base. And wouldn't this be a fun little nightlight to have in a room? Now, you could certainly just do the white cap on the top, and that would give you a little bit more of the colors of the sparkly lights coming through. But I love having the solid color. You could also do the white on the base and then have just the color for the cap. But play with it. This was a fun project to come together, and it was kind of a happy accident because I had just thought about doing the cover for the vase, and then I found my twinkly lights in the other room, and I thought, oh my goodness, this would make an amazing little nightlight. And let's turn this off so you can see those colors coming through the base. That's why we wanted a lightweight felt. For one reason, I had originally thought that this was just going to be a vase project, but now that it has turned into a mushroom nightlight project, even better that we've got a nice open area for the base and we've got a completed project. So that is your What to Felt Wednesday. Reminder, I will not be here tomorrow or Friday. I'm traveling, but I'll see you back on Monday for a weekend update, and we'll talk then. Have a great rest of your week and have a great weekend, everyone. Talk to you on Monday. Bye-bye.